Ray. What do you want to do tonight?
The same thing we do every night, Pinky. Try to take over the world.
The Master Key, The Secret of Abundance, The Poverty Cure, by L.W. de Lawrence. Poverty is as much a disease as pleurisy. Only the former attacks the mind and the latter the body. You never knew an energetic, spirited, and pushing man really poor. The poor in purse are almost invariably poor in mind. Of course, one must not include in this category people who prefer leading a simple existence, with no hankering after servants, motor cars, large establishments, and 1,001 etceteras which characterize modern life. There are many who, with a humble cottage and a plain fare, scarcely have any use for money, their wants being so few. By poverty I mean a state in which men can scarcely get enough to eat or cannot pay their way as they would like. Going a step higher, I should include among those whose ambitions rise above their means. But I am not concerned at present with this class. My present aim is to stimulate those who are in want of means to sustain life comfortably, to show them a way out, to revive that hope which once they had in abundance, but which contact with the world has well nigh utterly obliterated. The cure of poverty, it must be admitted at the outset, is no light task, but it is curable in nearly every case. It does not seem to have occurred to people, even except a very few, that no one need be poor. The saying about the poor always being with us seems to have been taken as an utterance that applied to all countries and ages, and the problem of the unemployed, which every civilized nation has to face, lends color to that idea. As a matter of fact, if we take nature, we see that she is almost wantonly extravagant. Look at the millions of seeds produced in flowers which cannot possibly grow up. Note the myriads of teeny cells which constitute the spawn of fish. Mark the lavishness and prodigality with which vegetation covers our fair earth, and you will recognize that there is nothing miserly or stinting about Dame Nature. This is really a lesson for man, if he could but see it in the right light, and I, like many writers on the subject of faith and confidence in oneself, have been endeavoring to the best of my powers to scatter broadcast during the last few years the conception that no intelligent, able being need be in dire want. One of the objections frequently raised by those opposed to a sensible socialism, not the view put forward today by socialists, is that there is not enough money to go around, and it has been affirmed that the earth could not produce sufficient food to maintain the inhabitants if the numbers grew beyond a certain proportion. These good people forget that not a tithe of the treasures of the earth have been extracted, and that science would have to be reckoned with where the question of food supply was concerned. I merely instance this objection because it stands in the way of reform with many people. First, the well-fed, moneyed class consider that the state of things is irremediable, and then the poor man imagines that conditions as we know them today are part of the natural order of things, and that if he were not in poverty, somebody else would be, and that it might as well perhaps be himself who would suffer, and so he loses whatever grit he has in him, and he becomes what many would be inclined to call philosophic, but which I prefer to designate resigned. I trust I have effectually removed this barrier, and now comes another important one, which bars the way to plenty. The belief that the inability to make money is only given to a few people who are really clever, or that there is a class of people who may be termed lucky. I think I have shown in this volume that there is no such thing as luck or chance. We must admit that people differ mentally as well as physically, but it is frequently more in degrees than in kind, and it is often the case with those who have had a defective bringing up or a scanty education that they are prone to exaggerate their weaknesses. This exaggeration acts very prejudiciously, and is at the root of much of the poverty amongst the people. To cure poverty, you must believe what is an absolute fact, that you are of use in some way, that you have something in you, that the impression of your acquaintances that you are a very commonplace person is merely an impression caused by your own conduct. In turn, this impression has reacted on you till you begin to believe firmly where before you had only a suspicion. It will show in your conversation, stamp itself in your walk, your features, your manner all around. You advertise your littleness wherever you go by your appearance, and servility clinches the unfavorable opinion formed of you by a prospective employer. All that is written about should be read and reread till it burns into the mind as a cure of poverty has been revealed. To get a better opinion of yourself, think. I know it is the most difficult task that could be set on all poor folk. Had they learned to think, they would not have been poor. They would rather do anything than think. Many will plead that they are not cut out for thinking. They have had no education. Shakespeare hadn't, but it did not prevent his becoming a genius. Few self-made men have had any education, and many men, highly educated, are as poor as crows. We live in the busiest age on record, and the hands or brains of every human being are urgently needed. If you went to an employer of labor and told him you had an idea which would save his expenses by a third, or increase the efficiency of his business, do you suppose you would not gain his ear if you approached him in the right attitude? Improvements are capable of being made in everything you can mention. Once you have learned to concentrate your mind and think, you have solved the problem of poverty, and for this reason. You have opened up unused and unsuspected avenues of thought, suggestions that will mean money to you in the long run. You have the same stuff in you as Milton, Goethe, Edison, but it never occurred to you, did it? It only wants rousing, bringing it into activity. Every man is a gold mine to himself, and instead of letting others exploit him, he should exploit himself. It is never too late to begin, unless you've turned 80, and with some men this age would not be an insurmountable barrier. With a better opinion of yourself and the habit of thinking and controlling your thoughts so as to concentrate them, you will begin to make plans. Judgment and tact, that rare virtue, will show themselves. Means will come to you to overcome difficulties, and you will come into possession of that priceless gem, initiative. You will see the necessity of being thoroughly in whatever calling you may take up, so that an employer can rely upon you. Once gain the confidence of an employer, and poverty and you will rarely meet. Make it a point to know your business from top to bottom. Concentrate your mind on your duties willingly, with a light heart, for you are building for the future. Get into close touch with the very poor people, and you will find that they invariably consider that only people with marked ability can get on. You can have ability just as well as anyone else. It is not the prerogative of kings. The poorest and the humblest man may cultivate it, but mark well, thinking is the basis of it. For by it you dispel ignorance, the greatest curse for which mankind suffers today. Willingness to learn is a sign of the successful man, and as an ability is gained the other dread ally of poverty, fear. They always go together, and therefore by destroying the one, you destroy both. Will loosen its hold on the heartstrings, and hope will take up its abode. At this point, you should take stock of yourself. You will now have valuable assets, and the next step is to make the most of them. Are you working with system? Are you utilizing your time well? Are you getting the best and highest out of yourself? Do not be content until you do. Whatever plan you may have commenced, give it a fair trial. Too many cases of failure have arisen from giving up too soon and not sticking with bulldog tenacity. To the man who sets his teeth and vows he will go through whatever the cost, fate gives way. It is a well-known fact in psychology that an idea, even though devoid of truth, a mere delusion, if held sufficiently long in mind, becomes at length to be regarded as a truth. A knowledge of this law is of incalculable worth to you. Test it now if you are poor. Apply it in your own case. Banish for a time being the canker of care, the paralyzing effect of worry and doubt in yourself. Probably you have been indulging in the luxury of these mental visitors for days or weeks, so you can afford to dispense with them for 10 or 20 minutes. I know full well the great sacrifice I am asking you to make, for you have an idea that by turning over these worries separately, you are deriving a species of sympathy which is very comforting. You have perhaps poured your woes into the ears of friend, some willing and others the reverse. You have afforded the only solace that life holds out, just as some people are only happy when they are miserable. When you are miserable, the state is so infectious that your friends avoid you when circumstances permit. We are all familiar with the class of persons who are always finding fault and picking holes or criticizing others or things generally, deriving immense satisfaction and comfort from the discomfort they cause. Probably have seen no harm in this habit of supplying sympathy to themselves. As a matter of fact, their greatest enemy could not have inflicted a greater injury upon them. What practical good has it done them? Has the habit solved their problem? What it has done in reality is to have weakened their makeup to an incredible extent. It has literally poisoned the spring of success. It has magnified their weakness and their want of self-reliance. Every time you sympathize with a weakness, you strengthen that weakness and render yourself less capable. You paralyze sources of action, destroy initiative, prevent the inception of new ideas, and clog the mental machinery, the one factor which is to lift you out of the slug of poverty. It deepens within you the feeling that you are hardly dealt with, that other folk are help and are lucky while everything goes wrong with you. I know the feeling, which is better understood than expressed. Get among the unemployed, and they will tell you how by a bad trick another fellow man did them out of a job, or how a chap who can't do his work a patch as well as you can has been in regular work for years. Cease whining, cease envying. The men who have kept their places have had some qualifications, for is there not much room for sentiment and favoritism in business? The man who holds a post because he is in with the foreman or an official is on very insecure ground, for changes are frequent, and removal of the foreman may be followed by the dismissal of the incompetent employee. If he does not hold his position, however, it is no affair of the other fellow. Every man is concerned with himself alone. It is his business to see that he is thoroughly efficient in whatever his calling may be, quick, diligent, reliable, ready to be shown or to learn. Such a man is certain of regular employment. He can employ himself, in fact, for as soon as a man has confidence in himself, he is fit to be his own employer. Each time an unkind, mean, angry thought passes through your brain, each time you criticize others, pass judgment on them, discuss their failings with others, you are nursing the poverty habit, and for this reason. Poverty is a condition of inharmony. Prosperity is a condition of harmony. All criticism, etc., creates inharmony, and it and harmony cannot exist in the mind at the same time. One inevitable neutralizes the other. Inharmony antagonizes, and the antagonism, being destructive in its character mental force, which is only generated in sufficient quantity to meet the demands upon by the body and the mind, is wasted. This waste of energy might be turned into another channel, and produce force which would enable problems to be solved and the ideas carried to completion. Further than this, the entertaining of such thoughts cause physical changes in cell tissue, manufacturing by some of those marvelous processes of chemistry poisons which break down the health, and no one who is poor can afford to dispense with good health. Men who are in poverty and rags do not trust themselves, or they would never have been in poverty. They have placed their trust in other people, hoping that they would make it all right. If they did not, then fear rushed in, and away went their hope, followed in hot pursuit by self-respect. I do not care how low down a man may be, where he may be placed, however sordid, however apparently hopeless his position, he can remedy it. But the cure must begin by trusting in himself. He has the same force, the same powers at the back of his mind as all of us. All that is needed is to use them, and the thing can only be used by bringing it into daily life. By idealizing surrounding, and the daily life is outlined above, you are insensibly led away from poverty and its inevitable degrading surrounding. An actual new life is lived, and in casting off the influence of the old, the mind takes on new aspects. Hope and trust are born into the nature, and ambition and determination are not far behind. There will be the belief that circumstances are beginning to change. Poverty and doubt pull down, hope rises. No one wants to engage a man soddened with the quality of misery or pennilessness. It would get on the nerves of many of an employer, and when the staff was reduced, the man stamped with these qualities would be the first to go. A man of this type never does good work. He has no heart. Therefore, his work is more or less mechanical, and this is soon noticed. We cannot expect employers to be philanthropists. Often they are driven on by a scourge of competition and cannot help themselves. A bright face is often quite as much a tonic to them as it is to others, and brightness often goes hand in hand with intelligence and interest in one's work. A bright disposition often brings about an alert state of mind, frequently leading to keener observation, and inventions are frequently made by workmen of this time. Bright intelligence also often leads to smartness of movements, dexterities in one's calling, and the quick eye of the employer, who is always surrounded by the clock watchers and stallers, soon detects the stuff a man is made of. When an employee really begins to take an interest in his work, then he is in the right path. But it does not necessarily follow that a man in poverty need be an employee. If he will faithfully follow the instructions given in this volume, he may devise means by which he will free himself from his cramping environment. Not a quarter of the inventions possible have been invented. Not a tithe of the riches in the earth have been suspected. Not a 1,000th part of the possibilities of existence has been touched up to the present. And all these possibilities are open to you. But you must think. When an idea comes along, do not dismiss it as wild and improbable, but try and make it as clear as you would the idea of a house you would like to live in. When Professor Morse offered to sell his telegraph apparatus to the American government in 1845 for $100,000, the offer was refused. Today, the Morse system is capitalized for $222 million. Professor Alexander Graham Bell offered to sell his telephone patents to the Western Union Telegraph Company for $60,000. But the officer of the company said that it was only a toy and had no commercial value. This same toy, according to the annual report of AT&T just issued, earned $160 million last year and has now more than 5 million telephones in use throughout the country. Of course, I do not imagine that you will initiate a colossal scheme like the first two, although any man who is not a congenital idiot may become a genius if he wish. But this illustrates the idea I am endeavoring to make plain, that provided we are fair to ourselves and try to develop more of what is in us, we are certain to enlarge our mind or expand our consciousness. Many and many a man fails to improve his surrounding through lightly casting aside an idea which only needed a little bit more maturing, a little more hatching to blossom into a really good thing. It is not education we lack. We have too much of what goes under that name, and the fact that the vast majority of wealthy men were never conspicuous for their learning enforces the assertion, but a lifting or a shifting of our conception, a different standard of value of ourselves, and once that different attitude towards ourselves is adapted, the way is comparatively smooth. A hint may be gleaned from the case cited above. Don't get in a rut. All poverty-stricken men travel in them. Don't do a thing in the way your forefathers did it, if it can be done in a better manner. Always be on the lookout for an improvement and cultivate the habit of observation. A Russian proverb says, "He goes through the forest and sees no firewood." But the cultivation of concentration and observation, the wits will be sharpened, and the mind more alert. Quick to take advantage of an opportunity, quick to apprehend, and the best aid to that indispensable qualification to all success, executive ability. Cut yourself off from your newspapers for a time. That is, unless you can discriminate. There is a large number of daily newspapers published in the country, Sunday papers, some of them printed on cheap paper and news to match. Analyze any of them, and it will be seen that they consist for the greater part of full reports of every crime committed in the United States, and the bulk of the cases occurring in other parts of the world. The most sordid details, the most abject, pitiful, sickening, and disgusting items are given as fully as the law of the land will permit. The shady, poverty-sodden side of humanity, with all its weaknesses, its vice, its wickedness, its meanness, craftiness, is set forth with such a superabundance of minuteness, and not only could a criminal career be learned by it, but could even induce many weak-minded people to emulate the men figuring in them. Revolting incidents from the divorce court, the hashing up of trickery and chicanery of the world, in a word, anything and everything which will not only depress but will drag the mind down, are to be found in the wretched specimen of the gutter press. Wallowing in the filth, is it any wonder that a man's taste become debauched, that he loses an interest in good literature, or that he keeps his poverty chains about him? Never mind being out of date with your news for a few weeks or months. When a crab is going to cast its shell, it hides in a crevice where it can lie undisturbed until the new shell has taken the place of the old one, when it can once more go forth. So with a man who would cast off his old mind, while the shedding process is going on, let him feed his mind in the best food obtainable. Good literature is plentiful and cheap enough in all conscience. But I would advocate dispensing with cheap newspapers in the ordinary sense, or read only the best with comments on the world's happening or thoughts. The daily paper has got to be looked upon as a sort of necessity by some people, and it is a good sign when it proceeds from a keen interest in one's country or progress of mankind. But even this can stand aside for a short time, as can the religious press for much of the same reason. They all tend to weaken the optimistic faculty in man. Naturally, man is a bundle of hope, but as one after another is dampened by wet blankets, hope begins to give out. Then indifference, misery, and finally hopelessness sets in, from which the grave kindly rescues many. The sensational, the sentimental drama, the sickly poetry are two other aspects which contribute to this weakening process. They hold before the eye with dramatic force the conflicting emotions which surge in the human breast, its passions, its foibles, as well as its noble impulses, and while it may be a veritable mirror of life, it is not what many would have. It is a fresh probing of wounds some souls would fain heal, an awakening of sad memories that would they prefer to bury forever, an ever-recurring reminder of the dark side of existence, what they would cast from them forever. When we read heart-rendering accounts of misery, see plays poignant with grief, we discuss them with friends, or if we keep silent respecting them, someone will discuss them with us, so that we keep alive within us and sear into our very soul the pains from which we have struggled to free ourselves. In conclusion, the cure of poverty is the result of real growth, mental and emotional. The nature which is poor in love, in sympathy, in goodwill, belief in itself, and its inherent powers is poor in pocket. To stint and stunt the nature is to stint and stunt the money-making possibility. If you feed on poverty thoughts, there is no use for money. It could not be appreciated, and however much might be obtained, it would do no good, but would dwindle away. Many are familiar with the old saw, "A fool and his money are soon parted." Most of us have known cases where very poor people, accustomed to live from hand to mouth, have come into money, have soon been in the same plight. The proper use of money can only come to those who have evolved to a point where they can use it intelligently. Money can never make brains in a man, but brains can make money, and all the wealth of the world is the result of brains. A lump of gold would not have any value were it not for the brains which first enable it to be wrought into something, coin or jewelry. The most precious substance in the universe today, radium, would not have been a penny a ton a century ago because brains had not discovered any use for it, and the same thing applies to everything. Evolve yourself and make yourself of use. There is a need for you, and you fill a position which only you can fill. It may take you some time, but what you gain is yours for all time. The enrichment of character means that new layers of yourself have been reached, and everything brought into manifestation must express itself, or in other words, must act so that the added growth will open up opportunities you cannot foresee at present, and poverty will no longer offer a fright. As like attracts like, so the poverty mind attracts poverty, and so long as the mind remains of that type, so long must poverty be expressed in the environment. A locomotive made to run along steel rails does the thing for which it was made. It cannot fly in the air or travel in the water. A clock fulfills its functions by indicating time, but no one would expect it to record changes in the atmosphere. So with mental states. It is no use having ideals if the mind has not reached these levels where the ideals can be used. The mind that would have comfortable circumstances must always keep at a higher level, because by doing the within thus created would find the without inadequate, or not corresponding, so the without would follow the within. Or a simpler illustration would be the pouring of a jelly into a mold. If the mold were misshapen or plain, so would the shape of the jelly. If the mold were artistic or beautiful, the jelly would have the pattern itself likewise. When you grow a mind in which sufficiency or plenty is the dominant thought, in which the notion of poverty would appear so grotesque, so foreign to your nature as to be unthinkable, then you have created a mold, and the substance which will fill it, your circumstance or environment, must follow that pattern. Truth gives rise to truth. A lie breeds a lie. A rose produces a rose, not a thistle, and good thoughts cannot produce bad action. Everything fulfills the law of its being. An effect must be like its cause. Sow thoughts of prosperity by having faith in yourself, and you cannot reap anything but prosperity. But the thoughts must ever be of this type. To think now of poverty and then of prosperity will only yield indifferent results. For one neutralizes the other, as I have shown more than once in this book. Reflect well over this truth. Poverty will not pass away until you create something better to take its place, and every man can create this something better. Take courage. Go in and win. 12 affirmations for the elimination of poverty. The following sentences will, if repeated with understanding daily, bring about the change in consciousness which will eradicate completely doubt and the poverty habit. The weakest man living has the powers of concentration folded within his organization, and they will remain folded until he learns to believe in their existence and then tries to develop them. To prepare for the life of opulence, absolutely full of power that draws wealth, I must stand by the person I am. I must uphold my aim by believing in myself and never slacken one link of the good opinion I have formed of it. Also know, each outreach of thy soul bears deep the seal of cosmic impulse eons. The thing, heart-hungry, every fiber thrills to reach, hath sought thee down the ages hungering too. You will never reach the place where you have all you want to spend except by commanding yourself to spend. And to want to spend, lessen your income, whatever that may happen to you. For having all you want to spend is a state of mind, not a matter of hundreds, thousands, or millions of dollars income. It is literally true that you are what you think, and when you think, therefore think abundant also. Every man gets just as much gold out of the world as he puts into it. All things are thought-made. Every man must think his own gold into being. To him who believes he can, everything is an opportunity. Depend only upon yourself. Believe in yourself, but work in harmony with all things. Thus you call forth the best that is in yourself and secure the best that external sources have to give. The destruction of the poor is their poverty. The soul instinctively and rightfully repels the idea of skimpiness. Like the whirlwind and the waterspout, I twist my environment into my form, whether it will or not. Success, from the most material to the most transcendental idea, combines its power into a triad: desire, expectation, and preparation. As a man believes, so is he. Even desultory thinking is creative and brings results. Premeditated and orderly thinking for a purpose matures that purpose into a fixed form.